Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike O'Malley here with the Hurricane Outlook and discussion for September 7th, 2021, recorded on 5:12 p.m. Eastern Time. Not too much to talk about today, but a look at a new tropical disturbance that could form near the coast of Florida or just off the southeastern United States coast, and a look at Hurricane Larry, which could become a threat to the Canadian Maritimes over the next several days. So let's go and jump straight into everything. Taking a wide look across the tropical Atlantic this afternoon, we have two main areas of interest right now. We are continuing to monitor Invest Area 91L down here in the central Gulf of Mexico, and this will be moving northeastward during the next day and will eventually cross over Florida, then off the southeast United States coastline, where there is a threat for some development chances over the next several days. And powerful Hurricane Larry, which is still maintaining its Category 3 intensity, this will be passing to the east of Bermuda, but given the fact that this is a very large storm, there is a tropical storm watch for the island of Bermuda, and then this could get awfully close here to the coastline of the Canadian Maritimes during the next several days. We can take a look here at the official track forecast from the National Hurricane Center. Again, this is the track here on Hurricane Larry as of the 5 o'clock advisory. Still maintaining winds of 115 miles per hour, so this is still a borderline Category 3 hurricane, but it is slowly weakening, although the weakening trend will not be that significant. Again, we do have a tropical storm watch for the island of Bermuda, as tropical storm conditions could be expected within the next 36 to 48 hours as this makes its closest approach to the island. And then eventually this will be turning northeastward and could go right over parts of the Canadian Maritimes over here. And again, this would be kind of a very devastating blow, especially given the fact that, again, most of the weather is going to be at this point on the southeastern side of the storm. And at that point, we could see some pretty substantial impacts there to portions of the Canadian Maritimes. We'll take a look at that here in the modeling in just a moment. If you look here at the visible satellite imagery here, again, we can tell that the storm is a little bit less organized than what it was yesterday. We noticed that for starters here again, the storm in its relative size has shrunk considerably, and it is taking on a little bit more of the banding appearance, meaning that this is not, it is still somewhat of an annular hurricane, but it's not truly annular like we saw yesterday. We also notice that there's a lot of dry air on the southern side of the storm here, and again, that is getting entrained into the storm from time to time. And we also have some dry air on the northern side trying to get worked into the storm itself. And if we jump back out here to the water vapor imagery loop here, we can tell that the outflow is rapidly expanding on the northern and kind of eastern sides here, but on the southwest side here, the outflow is not really being able to expand. And this is in part because we have some southwesterly vertical wind shear. We can actually tell is that there's an upper level low, a tut right here, that is kind of expanding the outflow on this northern side, but it is creating some vertical shear that is out of the southwest and from kind of southwest to northeast like this, and it is kind of pushing over some of the outflow. It's not really enough to completely disrupt the storm right now because it is pretty strong at the moment, but as this continues to kind of turn away here, again, this shear will become a little bit more of a detrimental factor. Now, annular hurricanes such as Larry, again, we talked about how it is still retaining some of its annular characteristics. This represents the fact that, again, it will have a slower time weakening because annular hurricanes are less susceptible to dry air entrainments and shear. So this will be one thing that will help keep this a powerful hurricane for the next several days. A look here at the recon plane that was in there or that is currently in there. Currently did find a pressure of about 965 millibars, and again, the pressure has risen quite a bit from where we were yesterday. We also noticed that the wind field here is not very tight. We noticed that right around the circulation itself, that the radius of maximum winds we noticed that are well out here, which means that, again, this is not a very tight inner core, and for significant intensification you need a very tight inner core with a smaller radius of maximum winds. This is a very large storm though, and given that it's a very large storm, hurricane force winds and tropical storm force winds encompass this entire area. So what we're noticing is that, again, the wind field of this is going to really push a lot of surge, or not a lot of surge, but rather a lot of rip currents and just overall higher tides outwards towards the United States East Coast during the next several days. Again, as this kind of passes well towards the north and east of the Northeast United States. Now we take a look here at the modeling forecast. This is the GFS, the 12Z run, valid for 2 p.m. this afternoon. The main steering components here, this is up at about 500 millibars, so this is at 18,400 feet in the atmosphere. What we're really looking for is the mid-level steering components, and again, because this is a stronger storms follow the mid and upper level steering components in the atmosphere. Right now, again, our main steering feature right now has been this ridge to the north, which has generally been steering the storm generally towards the north and east. But we have this approaching trough. We have this lead trough here. This is going to allow for some weakening in this ridge. But the bigger trough is right now over the Great Lakes, and this will be moving eastward with time. And this is what's going to eventually pull our storm generally more towards the north. And you can see as our storm approaches Bermuda here, we get this expansion in the ridge as this lead trough eventually weakens as it nears Greenland. But this new trough here that is digging over the Great Lakes and Canada is also moving eastward and is now beginning to tug our storm generally more towards the north-northwest. So we get a north-northwest moving storm kind of following the lip of this ridge, and eventually this trough kind of captures this storm and carries it towards the northeast. Now, again, this is going to depend a lot on interaction, but there is the potential that portions of Atlantic Canada could be dealing with the threat of a storm or hurricane making landfall as it transitions into a post-tropical cyclone. Now, just because this would be transitioning into a post-tropical cyclone does not mean that there won't be substantial impacts. We notice that even in nor'easter setups, nor'easters can cause a lot of surge and other problems. This is going to be a bona fide hurricane potentially making landfall in Atlantic Canada, somewhere up in that region, and eventually kind of skirts off and becomes a post-tropical cyclone fully. But again, this is something that is going to have to be monitored very carefully, and I would not be shocked to see watches and warnings go up for portions of these areas very shortly, sometime by tomorrow or whatever, because again, this will be moving very briskly, and that wind field is very expansive. We can see here again on the recon plane that that wind field is very expansive. So the closer this gets here to Atlantic Canada, the more impacts, gusty winds, heavy rainfall, again, and the threat for storm surge is all going to be present off of there. So shifting our attention away from that, we are also watching a new disturbance in the Atlantic. We have Invest Area 91L, which now has a 40% chance, a moderate chance of developing over the next several days as it moves generally off towards the north and east. Now, initially, this will bring some conditions and some rough weather to portions of the Florida Peninsula and Panhandle, and then this will eventually move off the southeastern United States coast here on its journey towards the northeast, where development chances after that time could gradually become more conducive there. Now, if we take a look here at the visible satellite imagery, we notice that, again, most of the weather right now is generally off towards the east of where any circulation is likely to be. And again, it's very hard to pin down where the circulation is at the moment. If we take a look here at the water vapor satellite imagery, what we notice is that we have some expansive outflow that is stretching from the eastern Pacific. We have a new tropical depression in the East Pacific that is likely to become a hurricane over the next several days, and this is already creating some expansive outflow into the Gulf of Mexico. And this is the one thing that is relatively limiting any disturbance that forms down here in the Gulf of Mexico. And we notice that, again, there is some outflow being aided on the north side. What you notice is that just off the top here of the screen, we have kind of this upper level trough here and an associated front that is across here. And again, this is kind of a difference between air mass and shear zones. And there is some increased diffluent flow aloft in this, which is creating that outflow on the northern side and generally convection as well. But again, we have a lot of shear that is coming from the East Pacific, and that's likely to hinder substantial development during the next several days. If we take a look here at the GFS, the 12Z run again valid for 2 p.m. this afternoon, and we look here at the 200 millibar wind pattern in the upper part of the atmosphere. This is for the Western Atlantic sector. We notice here's this tut right here that is beginning to shear off for Hurricane Larry at the moment. But we notice that, again, we do have a little bit of diffluent flow aloft. Again, this is mainly aided by this trough in the front that's digging in across here. So there is some diffluent flow aloft. But again, we notice that there's some pretty strong shear coming out of the East Pacific and Mexico into the Southern Gulf and Bay of Campeche. And that doesn't really change all that much. Again, the shear dynamics don't really change. This front becomes amplified. You get this trough in through here, and there's just a lot of shear in across this region, which really prevents substantial development. Now, we could see a system that tries to briefly form maybe into even a subtropical system. Again, the GFS does briefly spin up a small system that tries to come together near the Florida Panhandle, and eventually we can see this thing cross into the southeastern United States and the Gulf Stream, where eventually this thing tries to come together. We also have some other system trying to developing there in the Bay of Campeche just beyond the day 5 realm. Now again, steering components, again, we could take a look here at the 500 millibar height anomalies here. And again, generally speaking, we will have this ridge here. And again, there's not really much. The steering flow will be relatively weak, and we can kind of see that, but eventually it does break down from a trough moving just off the top of the screen. But again, we shouldn't really be dealing with this for too long. Again, I'm not really concerned that we're going to be dealing with a strong system, but there could be some heavy rainfall. Again, if we take a look here at the relative humidity in the middle part of the atmosphere, we notice that, again, there is this surge of tropical moisture that will be expanding from even southeastern Louisiana all the way through portions of the Florida Peninsula. And then eventually this tropical moisture gets kind of carried even into the Carolinas and off the Northeast before this front comes crashing down behind it. So there is some chance that this could become a weak depression or storm, but I'm not really worried about it. Certainly not worried about this thing becoming any significant hurricane or something like that. The environmental conditions just aren't there, and I'm not really overly concerned about it. So not really something to be concerned about, but of course we'll be watching. Not really making any chase plans for this thing just because this thing really isn't going to be worth it, in my opinion. And, you know, certainly the rainfall could become a problem, but if I'm not chasing it, there's no need to worry. All right. So that being said, just kind of a quick reminder. Again, some of our videos from Hurricane Ida, they will be kind of streaming in over the next several days, being put up for YouTube, and of course our Patreon viewers will get access first, and our channel members. So if you want to join that, there's always links in the description below. Twitter is where you can find me for most of my other content. I do more frequent updates on there and stuff like that. But we will have our whole Hurricane Ida catalog that will be kind of coming in over the next several days. It is a little bit kind of backlogged right now, only for the fact that, again, it's taking a while because these are 4K videos. So it's taking a little bit of time to download those and stuff like that and get them all edited for YouTube. But those will be coming out over the next several days. And then within probably a week or two is when we should have the final video, which will be a kind of a longer form video with all of the videos combined. So if you are interested in that, again, you know, we'll be having those shorter videos. Then in a week or two time, we'll have the longer videos there. All right. So that being said, I hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. Of course, I am Michael O'Malley. I'll talk to you guys again some more tomorrow.